If you've ever played Bloons TD Battles modded, then there's a pretty big chance you've heard of MayMod. MayMod was the first mod I ever made. When you compare the first version of MayMod to the current one, it is almost completely unrecognizable. Today is MayMod's 3rd anniversary, and we'll be looking at the history of MayMod. It all started back in 2017 when I was browsing YouTube and I suddenly got a video recommendation. It was a video from a YouTuber called MayMod. MayMod made a bunch of modded videos and I got really interested. I love the tower defense genre, and when I saw that I could make my own version of one of the best tower defense games, I just had to learn how to do it. But I had no idea where to start, so that's where I left it for a while. About a week passes and a friend of mine messages me. He told me he knew how to mod and gave me one of his mods to play. So we played and I got hacker pulled, but I didn't care. All I wanted to do now is to have fun making my own mod. So my friend taught me what he knew, and that's where it all begins. Now, I won't be talking about every single version of MayMod, because then this video would be over an hour long. I will only be showing the most important versions. So let's start with the almost oldest version that's still in existence, MayMod 1.0. The actual oldest version that still exists is MayMod 095, but there shouldn't be a lot of changes between the two, so we'll be skipping to 1.0. However, an old file still exists with balance changes for even older versions, dating all the way back to version 07. MayMod 1.0 was very simple. It was striving for a refreshing change of balance, or at least that's what I remember. Now, when I look at this again 3 years later, it really just looks like another terrible OP mod. Most towers just fire faster or have very slight changes to make them stronger. Interestingly enough, this version already has eco Bloons, which is one of the most unique features that MayMod has, although they aren't as well balanced as the ones in the newest version of MayMod. This wizard upgrade here is the first custom upgrade I ever made. It is very simple, only increasing tower's pierce by 1. But at this time I was really proud of myself. There's one more custom upgrade on this tower, and it replaces the Tempest Tornado. Instead of making the wizard's tornado stronger, he fires an ice bolt. I still remember me and one of my friends playing with only wizards and both of us using one of the sides. It was a true fire versus ice battle. And also, MayMod had a custom sprite for the screen edges at one point. I removed it though because no one used it, so what do we conclude from this? MayMod 1.0 is quite terrible, but it should only get better from here. Shortly after 1.0, I decided to make a Steam group for me and my friends to allow for easy access to the new versions of MayMod. The first version I ever posted here was MayMod 1.2.2, with the last version ever posted here being 1.5.3, the unknown update. The next important version that we'll be talking about, however, is version 1.2. 1.2 was one of the worst updates ever made to MayMod. This update changed all the waves to be a lot harder than the actual game. Now, you may question how this is a bad update, since this was the whole selling point of MayMod, a mod that was more challenging than regular Bloons TD battles. The issue lies within the terrible balancing of these waves. They were literal nonsense and made the game so laggy it was literally unplayable, and this only got fixed a lot of updates later. Also, if you've ever wondered why when you pick easy mode in newer versions it says for people who can't beat round 3, this is the reason. These greens can regen farm because they pop into 2 blues, which is still a thing in today's MayMod.
Perhaps regrow balloons work differently in this mod and multiply on lower tier balloons too, cause look what's about to happen. Looks like the napalm isn't strong enough to overcome the regrow, so I'm going to leak those blues. But WTF, that's some bullshit right there folks. Now it kind of seems like my regrow farm theory may be correct.
1.4 added one of the most iconic towers in the entire mod, the Danmaku Tower, and also another tower which was later removed, the Fire Tower. There isn't much to say about the Danmaku Tower, since it's almost the same compared to the one in the newest version, except for one thing, the ability, but I'll get to that a bit later. The Fire Tower would light balloons on fire around it, and it was incredibly overpowered, and fun to use. But that was about it for it. It was mediocre at best in late game, and was later replaced by another tower. This was also the first update to feature custom textures. 1.4.6, probably the most important update to MayMod of all time. This update fixed waves and made them way less laggy. 1.5, this update gets a mention, not because of what it added, but because of what it came with. When you download version 1.5, you get an extra file, maypedia.txt. This file contained almost every single piece of information about MayMod, and also included some stupid facts. 1.5.3, the final update of the Steam Group era. Now, this update didn't do anything outstanding, but what it did was... Here, I'll just show you the patch notes for a second. Removed Helipilot temporarily. This change has been memed to death, and people were constantly asking when the Helipilot would return. It never did, and it will never return. But why was the Helipilot removed? Well, I'll just let the Maypedia speak for itself. The reason why Helipilot was removed in 1.5.3 is because there were difficulties making the tower into something completely different. So after that happened, I lost interest in making the tower. It's still unknown when the Helipilot will make its return. I was trying to make the Helipilot into a summoning type tower. It would summon a red balloon that would attack other balloons, but because my knowledge was quite limited back then, I ran into trouble quite quickly, and had to scrap it. There wasn't really much of a reason to keep the Helipilot disabled because I reset the files for it back to what it originally was, but I was just too lazy to rebalance the Helipilot. After 1.5.3, I saw a video made by both ISAB and Aliens Rock. It was a video on a mod that I haven't seen before. It looked way better than MayMod, and it was made by none other than Jambite. Now, I got really jealous about this, but instead of just whining around, I decided to improve. My main focus shifted to making a difficult but balanced mod with tons of new towers to use. I was really impressed by Jambite's mod, and I wanted him to play MayMod so I could get his opinion on it. A friend hit me up with his modding Discord, so I joined and proceeded to do nothing because I was just too shy to type anything in chat or to message Jambite directly. But after my friend kept telling me to, I eventually started sending messages in Jambite's Discord. I sent a video of me playing MayMod with someone, and someone responded to it soon after I sent it, saying it looked awesome and that I should post it in Community Mods channel. I refused because I still had some issues to fix. 1.5.4, the first ever public release of MayMod. This update added the tower that isn't in MayMod anymore, the multi-boomer. It was a tower that would fire multiple boomerangs. Now this is probably one of the worst towers I've ever made. It looks kind of cool, but when you look behind the scenes, it's all just spaghetti. The tower wasn't even good, at best it would lag out your game. This update would also start a war between me and Jambite, but we'll get to that a bit later. For the next few updates, towers were being added constantly, including some fan favorites, like the Tornado Factory. I eventually messaged ISAB asking him if he could play my mod, but he's probably just taking his time responding. So I asked Tyler instead, and I still got a response on the same day. This started a small series on both Tyler's and ISAB's channels, all about MayMod. These videos were absolutely great. It wasn't just boring live commentary with no editing whatsoever, which is like 95% of all battles YouTubers nowadays. These videos had editing, they would try to explain what was going on, and commentary was made after the video was recorded, which made the quality of the videos way better than anything that gets produced nowadays. Every battles YouTuber nowadays just puts almost no effort into their videos. It's just live commentary from people with no personality whatsoever, all for the quick bucks. A lot of people are copying that trend and they are failing horribly. Just go play battles for a while and take a shot for every YouTube no-name you find. I really wish people would still put effort into their content and try to make something unique. but the only thing we've got left is people constantly trying to copy each other. The ability war. Now, this is a thing that nobody really remembers. Back in the day, when I first showcased the older Danmaku abilities, me and Jambite got into a bit of a war. Who could make the better looking ability? Now, my first response was to just keep adding crap to the Danmaku ability, but you can only make an ability look so good by spamming projectiles. Jambite, on the other hand, was constantly changing and trying out new things with his ability, until he settled with a design he liked. But before he could even properly finish his ability, I made an ability that won me the war. Now, this ability wasn't just made in a few minutes, it went through quite a few iterations before it got here, and I feel like you probably want to see them. So here you go. Soon after the war, I lost interest in MayMod again. The final update I made during this period was 1.7.5, which added a few new abilities to some towers. There's also a version 1.7.6 which was going to rework the Danmaku tower to look different. It was scrapped however, and never got a public release. After I lost interest, I looked around for what I could do now. I was extremely into Touhou at this time and decided I should make a mod all about Touhou. I won't get too into detail about Touhou mods since I want to talk about all my other failed projects in another video. So I'll just quickly summarize what happened. I was expecting too much from myself, and this essentially caused the mod to only ever receive a single public release, which was taken down after a few weeks. There's some more stuff that went wrong, but I'll keep that for the other video. So I came back to MayMod and added some Touhou mod features that now went unused. The first update I made after I came back was version 1.8, a tower from a different universe. This update added the Cerno tower from Touhou mod. MayMod 2.0. This update was both the biggest update and the most memed update. It took me 8 months to make, and MayMod 2 when became a massive meme. People would constantly ask me,
MayMod 2.0 is just lazy. Stick up my ass.
This update was going to add 3 new towers, 2 new maps, a lot of balance changes, and a lot of new sprites. The towers that were gonna be added are the Scythe tower, the anti-balloon system, and the radar. However, only 2 of them actually made it into the mod. The anti-balloon system was never added. It was gonna be a cluster of sentries that would be a single tower. Kind of weird, but I liked the idea at the time. It was replaced by the machine gunner in the end. This tower actually came from a collaboration with me and Jambite. We were gonna combine both MayMod and AltDim, Jambite's mod, into one mod, and one of the new tower ideas I had was the machine gunner. We eventually cancelled the MayMod and AltDim collab, and I added my new tower idea to MayMod 2.0 instead. The 2 new maps were directly imported from Touhou mod, but were changed slightly to work better with MayMod. After 2.0, only a few more updates were released. The only other update of note is 3.0. This update didn't take too long to make and did not change all that much. The main part of this update was me finally adding an ability to the Scythe tower. This ability became a favorite among a lot of players, just because of how stupid it was. I mean, it literally just summons Yukari's fucking train. The final version of MayMod I worked on was 4.0. 4.0 was supposed to be a gigantic rebalancing update, including a tower rework and finally a fix for all the lag issues. But without even realizing, I made everything worse. Now, I was trying to make everything less laggy by making Moabs more tanky, making them spawn less on waves, and having them drop less Bloons. To balance this out, I had to make towers deal more damage without ruining the normal Bloon balance. So my idea was to just add a second damage task to every tower, which its sole purpose is to deal damage to Moabs. Little did I know that this actually only worsened the lag, because apparently when you use multiple damage types, the amount of Bloons popped also increases. For example, when you pop a red Bloon, it counts as 1 Bloon popped, but when you have 2 damage types, a single red Bloon counts as 2 Bloons popped, essentially doubling the lag. The tower I was remaking was the Alchemist. The Alchemist was always a garbage tier tower in MayMod, and this update was supposed to finally give it a chance. But the way I designed the tower was terrible. It sounded like a cool idea at the time, but had a lot of flaws. The new Alchemist worked this way. It had two different attacks. The first one would throw flasks at Bloons filled with a poisonous liquid. The status effect this caused would slow Bloons down slightly, but didn't deal any damage. Now, here's where the second attack comes into play. Every few seconds, the Alchemist would release a weird shockwave. This shockwave was map-wide and would always hit Bloons, the only exception being Bloons that were not infected with the status effect. My idea was to fix the issue with the glue gunner in the base game. Spamming glue gunners across the map wouldn't increase the damage they dealt or anything like that. So my idea was to make it all about spreading the status effect and then punishing the Bloons with a second attack. Sounds good, but it was flawed. Spamming this tower was incredibly broken because the shockwave would hit a lot of Bloons and spreading the status effect was fairly easy. There's another issue in battles where when there's two AoE attacks hitting a Bloon on the same frame, only one of them would actually deal damage. So spamming the Alchemist was just as bad as spamming glue gunners. There were also a lot of issues with some of the upgrades I had planned for this tower. Some just wouldn't work and it made the end result a lot worse. The next issue with this update was the fixing of damage types. You know what damage types are, right? Like, for example, a Dart Monkey's Dart attack uses the damage type Piercing, and lead Bloons are immune to that damage type, which means you can't pop them. In MayMod, I was really lazy and just set the damage type of most towers to Plasma, which is a damage type that can pop every Bloon in the game. This update made it so every tower had proper damage types, so for example, Fire Bloons couldn't be popped by the Fire Turret anymore. This broke everything and is one of the main reasons this update was never released. I playtested this update and got absolutely no enjoyment from it. I didn't have fun making it, and in the end I had even less fun playing it. I never released it for that reason. If I didn't have fun playing it, would anyone else? And that's when I just dropped all the work and finally moved on to something different. Soon after I stopped working on MayMod, I felt like something was missing. I felt like MayMod didn't deserve to die, so I started working on a new mod that would be a sequel to MayMod. The mod was going to feature all of the best MayMod towers and remake some of their upgrades. The main focus was to fix all of the lag issues to make the mod fun again. I added a single tower and then called it quits. I just couldn't work on it anymore. I would always get headaches and lose motivation. I was done with MayMod. I needed a breath of fresh air. So this is where it truly ends for MayMod. No more work is being put into the mod and I'm not planning on doing so. It's sad to see it go, but sometimes you just have to move on, you know. MayMod may no longer be developed, but it left a big impact on the entire modding community. Even now, after being abandoned for so long, people still play it regularly. MayMod will forever hold a place in my heart for being the very first creation I ever made to bring joy to so many people. I just want to thank all the people that have supported me and have helped with MayMod over these 3 years. A special thanks to Jambite for helping me with a lot of technical stuff and teaching me various things about modding. Farpclicks for making the amazing radar sprites in MayMod. Tomeno for making the Cerno sprite. Without your help, this tower would have never made it into MayMod. Frico for getting me into battles modding and teaching me the basics. Shredded Chesd for getting me into Jambite's Discord and giving me the motivation to keep on going. Another video should come out at some point where I'm gonna talk about all of my other battles mods and what I've planned for the future.